Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left, and man, do I have some hypocrisy for you guys today. When it comes to these woke leftists, when it comes to the squad or the Hamas caucus, whatever you want to call them, they take the concept of hypocrisy to a whole other level. They talk a big game, they want to hold everybody else to a particular standard, but that's exactly it, it's everybody else, and certainly not themselves. Every single topic related to these woke leftists is the exact same thing. Oh, the planet is ending. It's an existential crisis. You need to sacrifice. You need to eat bugs and live in a pod. Me, however, I'm going to continue to fly my jet around the world, live my fancy, lavish, vacation-filled lifestyle. I happen to also own a mansion and multiple vacation homes. My carbon footprint is 10 times minimum the average household, but you must eat cockroaches. These absolute clowns, the same thing every time. Defund the police, they say, but of course they live in private gated communities with private security, and in many cases they have private security details. They're surrounded by people with firearms, but tell you that you don't have the right to own one. They say it's immoral to be rich as they make millions upon millions of dollars on the communist grift, and of course today's hypocrisy, canceling rent and demonizing landlords. The concept of being a landlord is evil and exploitative, they tell you, as of course, they themselves are landlords, collecting on a whole ton of rent. Hamas caucus squad member Rashida Tlaib is in hot water over today's exposing of more hypocrisy from the woke progressive caucus members. Let me show you guys what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so take a look at this tweet. We all remember this moment, right? Rashida Tlaib on the 30th of November 2020, at the height of the pandemic, she writes, "It's incredible that 17.8 million people are behind on rent or mortgage in the richest country in the world, while the 1% gained more wealth during this pandemic. The systems in our country are seriously broken. When will doing nothing not be an option?" She even went as far to say that housing is a human right, essentially pushing the cancellation of rent. But here's the thing, here's the little kicker. She's a monumental hypocrite. Rashida Tlaib pocketed up to $100,000 in rental income during the pandemic despite pushing to cancel rent. Squad member reported between $15,000 to $50,000 from rental income in 2021. Representative Rashida Tlaib has pocketed up to $100,000 in rental income during the pandemic despite pushing to cancel rent, according to the disclosure forms reviewed by Fox News Digital. Tlaib filed her latest annual financial disclosure report on Thursday, which revealed that she collected between $15,000 and $50,000 in rental income from a Detroit property in 2021. The Michigan Democrat reported the same rental income for 2020 last August, meaning she now made between $30,000 and $100,000 from rent payments during the pandemic. Tlaib, however, collected the rent checks despite co-sponsoring a bill alongside other squad members that sought to cancel rent during the pandemic. In early 2020, Tlaib joins Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat from New York, Ayanna Pressley, Democrat from Massachusetts, and others in co-sponsoring Representative Ilhan Omar's bill to institute a nationwide cancellation of rents and home mortgage payments through the duration of the COOF pandemic. Later in March 2021, the progressive firebrands reintroduced the bill, which would have canceled rent through April 2022. They weren't just talking about pushing your rent payments, pausing them for a limited period of time, they were pushing for the cancellation of rent throughout the entirety of the COOF pandemic. Now, of course, they were doing this as a political gesture. Do you think that they had any intention of actually passing this bill? No, of course not, because this bill would have never passed. They can virtue signal with their piece of legislation, act like they're doing something, act like they're so woke, while behind the scenes, she's collecting your rent. Oh, cancel rent. It's absolutely unimaginable, unspeakable that people would be forced to have to pay their rent in the richest country in the world. The same garbage that these leftoids are constantly saying. In the richest country of the world, people shouldn't have to do this and shouldn't have to do that. Absolute bollocks. The whole thing's a massive grift, a massive virtue signal to play on people's feelings. They talk, but they certainly don't walk the talk. She was collecting your rent behind the scenes. And that's rental income, by the way. I believe that's profit that she's collecting on top of her expenses. Another woke communist Democrat demonizing evil capitalism as she herself benefits from the system of capitalism. Oh no, folks, the 1%. They're enriching themselves throughout this coof pandemic. As she owns property that's skyrocketing in base value, her equity is shooting up and her rental income is paying the mortgage and then some. This level of hypocrisy is unbelievable. And probably the worst element of hypocrisy here is the same Democrats that are saying, oh, it's just so terrible that you can't go to work right now and you can't afford to pay your rent, are the same Democrats that are closing the economy and forcing you to go home, forcing you to be furloughed or lose your job and be unable to pay your rent, as they then push for legislation to either subsidize your rent or cancel your rent with your tax dollars. And of course, your tax dollars can't foot the whole bill, so then they need to supplement your tax dollars by printing even more money, absolutely decimating the economy through hyper runaway inflation, setting you back 2 years, and then ushering in an environment where you're losing 10% of your money value a year, and that's probably a conservative estimate. I mean, just in housing cost alone, in many cases people's buying power is down 50% and sometimes higher. Let me guess, in the richest country in the world, people shouldn't be unable to afford homes. Meanwhile, these Democrats are responsible for the exact policies that make housing unaffordable. It's the same damn thing over and over and over again that we see from these leftoids. They cause the problem, and then they grift and benefit off the suffering and off the demise, off the destruction that they create. I mean, for Pete's sakes, they started a group called Black Lives Matter, and then their activism and policies led to some of the highest loss of black life, and especially young black life, America has seen in decades since the 1990s, and they don't say a thing about it. Oh, my Black Lives Matter, ma defund the police, ma riots are okay, it's just the summer of love and peaceful protests. But then the moment those riots entered their gated communities, well then it's officially crossed the line. It's okay to burn down inner city underprivileged communities, but if you even step a foot in the privileged woke Western liberal community, you will be met with swift justice, I'll tell you that much. Actually, here's a perfect example from Chicago. Chicago police to divert officers from neighborhoods to protect movie sets. As the city of Chicago is going through some of the highest homicide rates it's ever experienced as a city, they cancel foot chases, demonize police officers to the point where over 2,000 officers have retired or left the force, and now they're diverting those police officers to protect fancy movie stars. That is the embodiment of the woke left. Here's another example. Eric Adams blamed Governor Abbott for New York City's homeless shelter problem, but new report demolishes his narrative. Adams said this week that he is deeply contemplating campaigning against Abbott in the Lone Star State because it is unimaginable what he has done. The New York mayor's campaign against Abbott began last month when Adams accused Abbott of busing migrants from the southern U.S. border to America's largest city. Adams claimed that thousands of migrants were flooding New York City's already crowded shelter system because of Abbott. The accusation, however, came before Abbott began sending migrants to New York City. Politico reported Friday that problems with New York City's homeless shelters have been building for much of the mayor's term, and elected officials and other advocates say Adams has turned a blind eye to a long-mounting and predictable crisis. These leftists create the crisis and then point the finger at Republicans and say, you see how evil they are? Or they point the finger at America and say, see, you see how terrible and evil the American system is? In a country as rich as America, no person should be homeless. No person should be illegal. A sanctuary city, and then the moment it gets out of hand, or the moment a Republican starts busing migrants to your self-proclaimed sanctuary city, I mean, you're supposed to be welcoming these people with open arms. Oh, the horror. They are such massive, unbelievable hypocrites. I mean, it's unreal. It's on every single issue. Every single issue that the Democrats purport to care about, most of the time, they are the main culprits, the main catalyst to these exact issues. You know, there's a reason why the middle class is getting absolutely decimated the further we move into this liberal New World Order. I mean, pay attention, the Western world has moved towards socialism at a remarkable rate over the last 2 to 3 decades, the US lagging behind by maybe a decade or so, but basically since Obama. And what has happened to your your standard of living. It's plummeted. The middle class is shrinking, the middle class is dying. Actually, it probably didn't start with Obama at all if you think about it. Probably more accurate to say it started with Bill Clinton's disastrous decision to allow China into the WTO, but it's certainly no coincidence at all that the moment the world started to get more liberal and more socialist, that even despite all the technological revolutions, the standard of living for basic everyday Americans in the middle class continues to plummet. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's by design. These people cannot be trusted. Very simply, the government and elected officials will never solve your problem. If you're voting for these people to solve your problems, you're going to make your problems worse. You should always vote for politicians who run on the very simple mandate of, I don't want to solve your problems. I want to shrink government and get government out of your life so that you can take care of your own life. Because you are better at managing your own life than government ever will be. But of course, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. I'm gonna get back to work though. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.